Hello, it's good to see you all again. Obviously, this background is not my normal, what you see on the channel. As you can guess, I'm in between places, but you shouldn't be surprised by that. I'm going to do a quick review of the transits of the week here. We're coming out of the full moon in Libra on the Venus station. I hope things have been interesting, at least in your lives, for the last 2 weeks since we had the eclipse 2 weeks ago, and then finally this kind of exposing moment here along with the Venus station. And if you haven't figured it out already, Mars tearing up a storm here and will be here to the middle of next week, and I'll get to that. I'm not going to go over super detailed. I'll do that on the live stream later on in the week. It looks like Thursday or Friday I'll do a live stream for my members, or possibly open it up to everybody else. You can check notifications for that. Let's go jump right in. We are on the 13th Sunday as we're moving out of that Libra moon and getting into a Mars ruled place here for the next 2.5 days, which is Scorpio moon, which is ruled by the Mars and Cancer transit, which we are almost at the end of here. A long story here that started here in September of last year, took a hiatus, and then came back at the beginning of January. And we're finally going to end this. I know many of you out there are kind of waiting for this to be done and move into a place where it's more at home, as in the sign of Leo, when we're dealing with fire. Remember, once Venus moves forward and hits Aries here very, very soon, all these stories we've been talking about for the last month are going to start to propel themselves over into June. So saying that, we get into the 14th, it's pretty chill, and so you would take this day tomorrow, the last 24 hours, to get your bearings together for the rest of the week. Then we get into Tuesday on the 15th, and that is when the moon in Scorpio is going to make a ton of aspects. And they're going to be watery aspects. They're going to trigger everything else that happens in the Pisces story with Venus, Saturn, and Mercury, and the North Node. This is a movement of a story emotionally. This is one where we can use Mars in Cancer to become strong when it comes with safety and security, what you need to protect in your lives. And you can make moves going forward in that realm. I'm keeping it really quick and simple. It's later that night, though. The moon goes into Sag here, and we get into the fire realm. And then it's late on the 15th, 11:25 p.m., where we have an interesting movement happen with Mercury here going into 0 degrees Aries. So you have to know pretty much now when I make this video on a Sunday, going in the 14th, 15th, and 16th, we're going to that. It's become the famed place this year, a 29-degree Pisces moment that moves into 0 degrees Aries. This is pretty much the number one theme of the whole year 2025, the movement from intuition to instinct, from bigger vision to impulse. And Mercury's going to do this and hit this spot for the third time here in the last month and a half. And that is moving now and officially will happen here late on Tuesday the 15th into Wednesday the 16th. For those of you in the Southern Hemisphere, a lot of people I know you're watching me there, you know that's happening there. That's when fire really starts to kick in. And we get our first out of many in the next 14 years of a Mercury-Neptune aspect. That's not going to happen in Pisces, but it's going to happen in Aries. You know, I've been telling some of you to take it easy the last couple of weeks, but if you're going to put anything into motion, this is the week to do it. If you're going to speak truth to power, this is the week to do it. You know the bigger vision of things. You reviewed this over the last 3 or 4 weeks. Now is when fire comes into play. You can push out the gate. Now, that's a general statement. You have to look to your own chart and look to the Aries and Pisces parts of your chart, and you have to gauge this for your individualistic self. Gauge the playing field, because that's what it is. Whenever we get into fireplaces in the sign of Aries, it's not a meditative place. It's a playing field, and at times it's like war. And so you have to be calculative with your with your impulsive actions, instinct. Know how to wield your sword and shield. All the work you've done practicing on the back end, this is the time to show it. So on and so forth. So I will get back to that in a second, but it's on the 16th late at 9:10 p.m. that we have our official Mercury-Neptune conjunction that happens in Pisces. Ideas, thoughts, and opinions that have been formulated for the last month, this is when you take the next step forward. Do it creatively. When we get to the 17th on Thursday, moon still in Sag, and then we get the day many of us have been waiting for since January, is when Mars finally leaves Cancer and goes into Leo, and we have another planet that enters in another fire sign that propels stories forward. So I know many of you are going to be celebrating this. I'm not in particular because I've become used to using Mars in Cancer when it comes to rooting out deeper emotional stories, and when we're dealing with past and ancestry and understanding what to take with us forward and what to leave behind. A lot of good works happen here in my personal life with that. But I know many of you are sick of it. So you're going to get your wish finally. You're going to get Mars in a fire sign. And that's going to kick in on the 17th. I'm going to talk about this on the live stream on Thursday. When we get into the 18th, that fire moon will then connect with Saturn, do a trine with the Aries sun, which is amazing if you're a fire sign. And then it's later on the Friday the 18th that the moon moves into boring, stable, practical Capricorn for the next 2.5 days through the weekend. And then we get to do something I like every year, is the Taurus birthdays start on the 19th. And then we get into, at least in the Northern Hemisphere, a sweet, indulgent garden way of living. As we get to the 19th, another important first aspect for Mars and Leo will be the trine to Neptune and Aries. Mercury gave you the hint of this in the beginning of the week. Mars propels us forward. Again, whenever we deal with fire signs, at least in this context, because we've been waiting for this, I think it's a great thing to show who you are creatively and to do healthy ego-based decision making. I think it's really good to be proud of who you are and what you've been working on in the fire parts of your chart. I think it's no holds barred. I think you should be celebrating that, showing that without even thinking twice, because we know Mars is all about impulse and instinct and dealing with aftermath. I think at this point it feels good, and I think the world needs more of this, because we know too, through fire signs, creativity flourishes. And if you've been working on a project, start showing people this. Don't be afraid of it, be proud of it. The 20th on this short forecast gets interesting, and it has to do with Venus now hitting its last degrees, being in Pisces. We'll make a sextile to Uranus, so we got a big surprise coming. This is the third time Venus is Pisces is going to do this in the last 2 months. We do it again with Uranus on Sunday. Then Mercury is going to sextile Pluto, so we have the outer body planets involved with carrying personal story next weekend. And then we get into one of my favorite times of the month, as you know, an Aquarius moon, which will do a moon-Pluto conjunction on 11/19 on Sunday. Yeah, dude, I shortchanged you on the video. I did. I just want to do this really quick. Honestly, it's all aftermath after this full moon that just happened. So you get to line up the pieces this week in a fire-based way to set yourself up for the rest of April. Just know that when we have the third Mars-Pluto opposition, I think that's when everything gets set off for better or worse. And so prepare for that, because we're dealing with massive power struggle in that. We're going to see it in world politics. We're going to see it with certain of the current narratives happening in the Middle East and in Russia-Ukraine story, and even here in the United States. You should prepare yourself for that, because the last couple times we did this, the second one was during the inauguration week, and you know the first one happened at the end of last year. That's on the bigger level. So on your personal level, you have to gauge the Leo and Aquarius parts of your chart and the ongoing struggles going there. It's going to set off at the end of the month. This is a week to set yourself up correctly with the tools that you need to propel that story. Also for protection when it comes to sword and shield, fire-based ways of doing things, hence the Aries part. And most importantly, I think one of the better tools and even weapons to use in life is, as I've been preaching on this channel, is your creative endeavors. And that's where one can work out and balance themselves within, and kind of in a good way find ways to connect with people which at first seem to be caustic, but through creative tools and vessels you find an in-between place with people and narratives. And I think, and I wish for that for the world. I don't think that we get immediately, but you know, the more control you have in life has to do with your own personal life, not necessarily with world politics. Saying that, I open up my books on Saturday, which I don't normally do. So if you're thinking about dropping a session, you know where to find it in a copy. It's Thursday or Friday is going to be the live stream. Just so you know, I'm leaving Chicago here because I was in town to set up as part of a team that's going to set up a major conference here in September of 2026, which some of you know about. I'll put the info link in the bottom of my copy. Really excited. I'll be running the marketplace there and selling ads for the conference, but pretty much getting ready for 12 to 1,500 astrologers to show up from all over the world next year. We'll talk more about that later on the channel. That is the most surface level basic forecast I've done and it doesn't do things justice, but I want to stay consistent with you all, okay? In the meantime, find me on IG and on Blue Sky, and any other questions you know where to email me, okay? So on that note, I'll talk with you soon.